All right, guys, welcome back to another video. Lots to talk about. It's already been a pretty crazy week, but we will start off here talking about the latest Xbox Game Pass announcement, plus an awesome Xbox prize for some more games that are going to be coming, and many other things. But before we continue, if you do enjoy daily gaming news and Xbox content, make sure to hit that like, subscribe, share the video. Also check out my Spotify. Link is in the description. So we got the latest announcement here, the first announcement for the September release of Xbox Game Pass games, and there is one big game here, of course, is a day one launch, as well as some other fun games to jump in and play. So there is Star Trucker, which is actually, I guess, another day one game here. This is cloud, console, and PC coming September 3rd. And again, it says available day one on Game Pass, and you are going and you are in the driver's seat of a rocket-powered big rig, and you're hauling cargo. They say scavenge for salvage and interact with an eclectic cast of star-hopping truckers in this Americana-infused journey on the ultimate open road. Don't know anything about this game, but hey, there it is. It is available right now if you do want to check it out. Now, with specifically from these four games that were in this announcement, you have Age of Mythology Retold, which is a big one here, coming out right now. You can go download it and play it on cloud, PC, and your Xbox Series X and S. And I'm going to be jumping in and playing this. I already have it pre-downloaded, which is pretty cool that this is coming out on console at the same time as it is coming out on PC. I think this is going to be a big one here, a big real-time strategy game. Obviously, this is the remaster of Age of Mythology. They say it is Age of Mythology with modern real-time strategy design and visuals, and Retold is an epic and innovative experience for old and new players alike. I think it's going to be big. This is one of the big first-party Xbox Game Pass games that is coming out to the service and to the Xbox ecosystem between now and the end of the year. Then we have Expeditions, a Mud Runner game coming to cloud, console, and PC on September 5th. And I mean, a lot of people love these Mud Runners and Snow Runner games, but this is another one in the series that is launching. And then Riders Republic coming to cloud, console, and PC on September 11th. Very fun game. I've played a bunch of this. If you like extreme sports, you like open world extreme sports where you're going through the map and then landing in different areas and going from snowboarding to skateboarding to mountain biking to bike racing to flying suits or whatever it's called. Like, it is a really, really fun game. You can get lost in it and just be in that world for a very long time. So if you haven't checked out Riders Republic, I definitely would recommend it. So cool stuff there. Not a huge announcement of games, but definitely fun stuff to be played. And the big one, of course, is going to be Age of Mythology Retold. Now let's jump over here and let's talk about the Marvel vs. Capcom and the Capcom Fighting Collection 2. As we know, these games were announced to massive excitement. And the big thing that did stand out if you were on Xbox was that it was skipping the platform. There's lots of questions that were coming up as to why these games would be skipping the platform. You saw all the narratives that Capcom is abandoning Xbox, Capcom hates Xbox, which made absolutely no sense, especially if you kind of look at what has happened with Xbox and Capcom and just in recent times with games coming into Game Pass and them supporting the platform in many different ways. So there was some more digging that went on, and it was realized that it was the framework, it was the Xbox One pipeline that was holding these games back from releasing on the platform. You could see the releases that they currently had were the PS4, the Nintendo Switch, and PC. Wasn't even on the PlayStation 5. It was only going to be available on the PS5 via backwards compatibility. So they still had that pipeline open on PlayStation for the PS4 to get games onto the PlayStation 5. But Xbox and Xbox One, we know they had shut down support for the MT framework a few years ago. And it now looks like they're working all of this out. And the Capcom Fighting Collection 2, as well as the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection, is going to be launching on Xbox, which is a huge win. And it's great that Xbox looked at this, got to work, and made sure that this was going to happen. As someone who owns the other Capcom Fighting Collections on Xbox, I am very happy to hear this. But they put this tweet out, and everyone on Xbox now, if you were looking forward to this, can go out and get the game. It says, we're happy to announce that after technical discussions with our partners at Microsoft, Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection, Arcade Classics, and Capcom Fighting Collection 2 will release on the Xbox One. And again, that's the key. It's releasing on the Xbox One. It's not actually releasing on the Series X and S. You're going to be able to play it on your Series X and S via the backwards compatibility. They say both Xbox versions arrive in 2025, so stay tuned for more information. So great that this has occurred. I mean, you take a look at the games that you are getting with the Capcom Fighting Collection 2, you get Capcom vs. SNK Millennium Fight 2000 Pro, Capcom vs. SNK 2 Mark of the Millennium 2001, Capcom Fighting Evolution, Street Fighter Alpha 3 Upper, Project Justice, Power Stone, Power Stone 2, Plasma Sword Nightmare of Bilstein. So, I mean, the Power Sword and getting the Plasma Sword games there is super cool, plus all the other games are good. And then you also have Marvel vs. Capcom, which you get X-Men Children of Adam, Marvel Superheroes, X-Men vs. Street Fighter, Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom Clash of Superheroes, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, New Age of Heroes, and The Punisher. So tons of great classic fighting games that you're going to be able to play. And as I said, I own the other ones, so I'm really happy to own these. And I think this whole story here just does prove it. It has nothing to do with Capcom hating Xbox. It has nothing to do with the Xbox Series S or whatever some weird narrative fanboys wanted to try to spin to make this look as bad as it possibly could. It had to do with that empty framework. It had to do with the pipeline of the Xbox One and whatever technical issues for that development of putting the game out on last generation consoles and then getting them to be able to be played via backwards compatibility on the Series X and S. That has all been worked out now. And I would expect going forward, future games, hopefully Xbox gets ahead of it rather than waiting until after the announcement happens, then all of the outrage comes out, and they all are going to be able to now release on Xbox the same day as the other platforms out there. Okay, let's talk about this, because this is a huge game coming over to Xbox, and they know this, and they are capitalizing here with some big marketing, and that is for Hoyo versus Genshin Impact. This was just announced at the Gamescom opening night live that it was coming over to Xbox, and a lot of people are very excited because it was a platform that it was not on, and it has so many players within this game. And now they're going out there and they're coming up with some big marketing to let people know, which is always a critique that people have, or criticism that people have of Xbox, is their marketing. They seem to kind of drop the ball when it comes to letting people know what's available on the platform, what's even available on Xbox Game Pass. But it says here that at Gamescom 2024, Hoyo Versus revealed that Genshin Impact will drop on Xbox on November 20th, and additionally Genshin Impact on Xbox will have some form of tie-in with Xbox Game Pass. It's always something that they do have with free-to-play games, which you kind of, not a lot of people talk about and forget, but there are those perks that you get if you are subscribed to the service, some cosmetics, some downloadable stuff that you get if you're subscribed to Game Pass and you're playing those free-to-play games. I mean, they even mentioned it here. Other free-to-play games on Game Pass enjoy added benefits. In the case of Valorant and League of Legends, Xbox and PC Game Pass subscribers get full access to the roster of characters, which is massive. But then we see this, and it says that the marketing is completely ramping up. And in fact, this here is in New York. I believe this is Times Square, where you can see this massive, massive ad for Genshin Impact to let people know that, hey, you're playing this game. It's now going to be available on Xbox. We know this is cross-play, cross-progression, all of that stuff. Go and download it and get ready. Now, there's also this here. They had Genshin Impact offline pop-up events happening at Lancaster Place in the UK. So they're going really hard. They know that this is such a massive game for the platform to finally get it, and they are trying hard here to get people to jump in and play it on the Xbox platform. Okay, let's talk about this, because Microsoft and Apple, they are still arguing over cloud gaming apps. If you remember what happened, basically Xbox wanted to put Xbox Cloud Gaming on iOS. They got blocked by Apple because they had said essentially that they need to be able to verify every single game within the Game Pass app before they can allow it onto the store, which would mean that they would have to release every game as a separate app and not be able to access it all via the Xbox Game Pass app. And Xbox, I mean, rightfully so, said that was absurd. So they did a workaround, and you can now access Xbox Cloud Gaming, your Game Pass subscription, on iOS devices via the browser. But it looks like there's still more going on here with the App Store changes that was going to allow Xbox to actually natively put apps on Apple. And it looks like there's some more discussion and arguments going on. So it says here that Microsoft already said earlier this year that Apple's cloud changes don't go far enough for Xbox, but in submissions to the UK's Competition and Markets Authority, the CMA, which we all know based off of the ABK and how much pushback they gave to that deal, They say Microsoft now argues that Apple's changes in January, March, and April to its App Store guidelines aren't enough for its to operate a native Xbox cloud gaming app on iOS at all. So they're still struggling here to get the actual app on to Apple devices. Specifically, they say Microsoft identified a number of other provisions in Apple's guidelines that continue to limit its ability to distribute and operate cloud gaming iOS native apps. And they list a bunch of those guidelines. And they are claiming here that the guidelines still represent an obstacle to cloud gaming native apps because it apparently can't comply with them both technically and economically if it incorporates third-party games into Xbox cloud gaming services on iOS. And Microsoft specifically calls out Apple's requirement for multi-platform services like Xbox Cloud Gaming to make all content, subscriptions, and features available within an iOS app as an in-app purchase. So, I mean, this sounds kind of similar to what was previously happening. And we'll see. We'll see if they ever get that actual app native on iOS devices, because if you have Android, it works very well. Easy to get into, easy to launch games, and it's far nicer than having to go through the browser. I do think here, obviously, why they would be pushing against this, and they do mention it here, is because of that commission. Apple doesn't want to lose out on all the commission fees that people would be making if there are purchases within the app itself. They say here, in fact, Apple's IAP commission fee is set at a level that is neither economically sustainable nor justifiable. The 30% commission fee makes it impossible for Microsoft to effectively monetize its cloud gaming services offerings. And then they mentioned the guidelines. So that's what it is. And there's no way that they're going to continue to try to work with them and put an app out if they're going to have to pay a bunch of money. That just makes no sense for how much money they're thinking they can make off of Apple users going forward. But we will see if this does get worked out. I hope for the sake of Apple users, it does. I mean, I have Android, so I don't really care that much for me personally, but for Apple users, I hope it does get worked out so they can completely use the app in an easy fashion and access all of the cloud gaming features. Okay, let's talk Concord some more, because we talked about this yesterday. This is one of the biggest fails in gaming, maybe all time. I'm not really sure. I'd have to go back and look at every single fail, but definitely this year, maybe the biggest one this year. And it's unfortunate for the people who worked on this game for a long time. Hopefully they don't all get fired and the studio doesn't get closed down, but that's kind of what we have seen happen in 2024. And as we know, Concord's going offline on September 6th, just shortly after its release. And here is another reason. It says here, they appear to have made $1 million, which clearly is nothing compared to how much they have put into this game over the years of development. So it says here, Concord has possibly just $25,000 in sales total, according to industry analysts, based on an extensive report from IGN's Rebecca Valentine. It's tied to the game's exceptionally low player count, which peaked under 700 on Steam and was the 147th most played game on PlayStation during its launch week. Then I go on here to say, so if you take 25,000 unit estimates multiplied by 40, you're just $1 million in revenue. And comparing that to something like Spider-Man 2, they made about $770 million in revenue. Clearly, this is something that is going to be very detrimental to PlayStation. They're going to have to find ways to recover from this. And one of the main reasons is it reportedly took them 6 to 8 years to develop, estimating around $100 million. Around that. That's an estimate. It could easily be far more than that. So they're going to be losing like $100 million basically, at least, on this game. And you have to think about the fact that they're taking a full loss on this. They are refunding everybody that purchased the game at $40, and we'll see what they do to go forward. Are they going to just release free to play, try to revitalize it in that way? That could be an option. Or are they going to just at this point sit back, take the loss, and move on, and kind of hope people forget about Concord at all as a PlayStation release? I mean, it's crazy that they've already shut this down, not even giving it any chance here to try to breathe, to try to get some promotion around it, try to get some excitement around it. And I mean, I get it, because I just don't see in any way that this game was going to improve, as the player numbers were already extremely low. And getting lower, I don't even know how you can get lower than like 50 players on Steam, but it was, which is an insane thing. So that is Concord, and we'll see what PlayStation does from there. Now, we have some information about the next generation of consoles. And of course, as we get closer to the end of this generation, we will see a lot more stuff like this. Generally never actually works out to being as powerful or as crazy as these reports make it to be when we get the actual specs of the console, but it's always fun to look at what we could be seeing. So we have PlayStation 6 and Xbox Next could deliver the biggest generational leap with machine learning, and the current generation was oversold. Now, this comes via Digital Foundry, and that they're looking at everything that is going on. We know that the PS5 Pro is going to have PSSR based off of the leaks and rumors that seem very, very true, which is going to be huge, I think, going forward for the PS5 Pro, as well as going into the next generation of PlayStation. But this was Digital Foundry speaking during their podcast, and they say here that we've barely scratched the surface in regards to machine learning and what it is capable of. They say it's been used for denoising ray tracing with NVIDIA DLSS ray reconstruction, and many are the applications that are being researched, such as material and texture quality improvements and even geometry. So some of these machine learning power features can make the difference between the PlayStation 6 and the next Xbox over their predecessors, potentially making these systems the real 4K resolution 60 FPS machines that the current generation of consoles were said to be. And that was one of the major selling points of this gen, was the Series X, the most powerful console. Then you had the PS5, and that they were going to be able to run games 4K 60 frames per second. That was going to basically be the baseline for games coming out. And obviously they oversold it. Like, let's be real here. They oversold the consoles and what they would be able to do consistently in terms of the output. Now it's basically you're getting your performance mode, which is 60 FPS and not 4K, 1440p, maybe even 1080p in some cases. And then you're getting your quality mode, which is supposed to be 4K at 30 frames per second. And yes, we're 4 years into this generation and games are becoming a bit more demanding than they were at the beginning, but clearly it has not been the baseline, and the consoles have not been able to keep up with the power of the games that are coming out. And one of the things that I totally believe here, and I think Digital Foundry is spot on here, is that machine learning and all of these software side features are going to be far more important than the actual hardware under the hood. How are they going to be able to utilize those features to make games run better, take a load off of the actual hardware so that they can continuously get that baseline 4K 60 frames per second throughout the entire generation? Something that we had heard about with things like FSR 3.0 on the Xbox, which we've seen implemented and have done wonders. But the reality is most developers aren't taking all of these tools. Again, we're talking about the tools and implementing them into the games to make them as optimized as possible. So we'll see what happens here. All of these stuff can be available, but if the developers don't utilize the features that are available on the console, it won't make any difference. And finally, we have this, because this is kind of an interesting one here. Shadows of the Damned Hella Remastered is coming out, and it's being censored on the consoles in Japan. Suda51 is confirming, and the co-creator, who was previously at Xbox when he was with Tango Gamer, Shinji Mikami, is calling them out, is calling out the censors of the game. And I completely agree with them. It says the original version of the game released in 2011 had to be censored in Japan to appease the ratings board Zero. And now in an interview with GameSpark, Suda confirms that the upcoming Shadows of the Damned Hella Remastered has once again been censored in Japan, but only on consoles, because the PC version doesn't have to pass through Zero. And they say here, we had to prepare two versions of the game, which is a real challenge. In remastering the game, we had to develop two versions at the same time, which had a tremendous impact on our workload and extended development period. And in a recent interview, Suda's co-creator Shinji Mikami expressed his frustration at the ratings process in Japan, claiming that Zero don't understand the process of playing video games. Specifically, you're here saying, I think it's a strange situation that there are people who want to play edgy games, and that there are those who don't play games who try to prevent their enjoyment by restricting those works with regulations. And I agree with them. I mean, people who are regulating stuff aren't playing video games. They're just kind of looking at the rubric, or whatever you want to call the guidelines, and then just applying that to this content. And then Suda here adds, if regional restrictions are imposed, we have no choice but to adhere to them, but I always wonder what the player thinks about it. For example, if a lot of people buy the PC version on Steam because they want to play without restrictions, it would be a bit sad considering it's available on a variety of platforms. And it makes me wonder who the restrictions are aimed at. At the very least, I don't think they're aimed at the customers who play the game. So there you have it. If you were hoping that this version would not be censored, at least in Japan, it is going to be censored going forward. And of course, Shinji Mikami calls them out and disagrees with them. But I will end the video there. If you did enjoy this video, hit that thumbs up. If you're new here, hit that subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.
We'll be right back.